It's time for CBJ in 30, presented by Telhio Credit Union. Find us on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play Music, YouTube, and TuneIn. The easiest thing to do is tell Alexa or Siri to play CBJ in 30. Here's your host, Bob McElligott.
What a night it was on Saturday to watch Elvis go into Las Vegas and come out not only with a win, but with his first National Hockey League shutout. And I know many of you were there, and you saw it. You witnessed it live, and I'll tell you something. It was something worth seeing, wasn't it? Don't you agree? What a way to end a road trip for the Blue Jackets, who looked like they had kind of stalled after being beaten in San Jose on Thursday night. We always use those keywords like response, and I don't know, what's some of the other dumb words that we throw around doing interviews and stuff like that. Anyway, response is one that is always out there. I think it's Dave Metzold's favorite word is response, but you couldn't respond any better. There is no better way to respond than the way the Blue Jackets did on Saturday night, coming off a game that created a lot of doubts on Thursday. And I played for you on Friday John Tortorella's pregame interview for Thursday night's game when he said that there were warning signs that his team wasn't playing the right way, even though they got wins in Los Angeles and Anaheim. He could see it coming. Well, then it did all come together on Thursday. They didn't play the right way. They couldn't forecheck, and they lost the game. Well, they changed all of that on Saturday in Vegas, and I think they stunned the Golden Knights. I know they did. There's no question about that. Vegas had lost 2 games in a row. They were wrapping up a 7-game homestand. They had won the first 4. They had lost 2 in a row. They were not looking to go out on a losing note because they don't go back home again until February the 8th because of their travel. They're coming to the East. Then the All-Star break is in there, and they're not going to play at home again until February the 8th. So if you think that they wanted to leave on a sour note, they absolutely did not. Absolutely did not. But the Blue Jackets gave them no choice. They kept them to the outside all night. They didn't let them get to the inside. The few times they did, the shot was either blocked or Elvis made a good save. It was just a very well-played game. It was Blue Jackets hockey through and through. No doubt about it. Did everything that they had to do to get a win in that game. And again, it's impressive. You win 3 out of 4. You went out west, you win 3 out of 4. Now listen, let's not, let's take away the fluff here. Quite frankly, the LA Kings, Anaheim Ducks, and San Jose Sharks are all having down years. But you've got to take advantage of those kind of teams when you get the opportunity. And the Blue Jackets did, 2 out of 3. And even Meatloaf said 2 out of 3 ain't bad, right? So they went out there and they did their jobs. 3-1, feel good about themselves, come back home, big week at Nationwide Arena. It starts tomorrow night against the Boston Bruins, a team that the Blue Jackets just went up to Boston last week and beat in overtime 2-1. So the Bruins are going to be looking to get revenge at Nationwide Arena tomorrow night. And then you've got the Carolina Hurricanes coming up on Thursday night. That's a division game. That's a team that you're chasing within the division. So a couple of big games are on the horizon. Torts always says they take them one game at a time, so it is only Boston that the Blue Jackets are focused on. But they played Vegas like they played Boston, and they got wins in each of those games. So they have to go out and play like that once again tomorrow. But enough about what I have to say. The Monday Mailbag edition of this show is for what you have to say. It's for your questions and for me to answer those questions as best I can and for you to get a little bit of feedback. So that's what we're going to do right after I tell you about Telhio Credit Union. Telhio Credit Union's got so many things to tell you all the time, whether it's simple services like checking account, savings account, that can be for your personal use. It could be if you have a small business and you're looking to set something up there. Personal loans, very good for personal loans. Their rates are right there on their website at telhio.org. So go and do your homework, do your research, figure out what you're looking for, what you need, what services they provide. Find something that they have that you didn't know that they have, because I'm telling you, I've looked through that website, and that's going to happen to you. You're going to go on there and say, oh, with a checking account, I can get this. I didn't know that. But it's right there for you at telhio.org. If you can't find the answers to your questions, there's a live chat button on the right side that you can utilize during business hours, or if you'd like to talk to a person, which is, it's still a viable option in the 21st century. you can do that by stopping at any local Telhio Credit Union office. Telhio Credit Union is open to everyone in central and southwestern Ohio. They are federally insured by NCUA. So it is time now to get to your questions. And I'm going to open this week's Monday Mailbag the same way I did last week, because I told you last week this was available to you. I told you it was an option that I hope that more people start to take, and I've had someone else partake this week. So the first question is going to be one that was emailed to me by using a voice memo on the phone, asking the question, and just sending it to me via email, bobbymac@bluejackets.com. And that's how I kicked off last week's show. I hope we get to a point where the entire show is questions like that. I really do. But we're working. It's a work in progress, and we're starting slow, but we're not sitting dead in the water, right? Because people are starting to respond to this. So get your phone, your voice memo, just ask your question, say who you are, where you're from, tell me what ask me your question, and then I can put it right on the show. And it can be your voice, not my voice. Case in point, here we go with the first question today.
Hey, Bob, this is Josh Hall from Grove City, Ohio. I've been a loyal listener of CBJ and 30 since day one, man. I love the podcast and continue to appreciate all you do for us CBJ fans. So this season, you have the new format. You've got Monday Mailbags, answering CBJ fan questions. Usually there's a timeout with Torts, and then, of course, Inside Edge with Jody. And then I know at some point in the week, you usually sprinkle in an interview with someone else around the league. So my question is, of all those formats, what is your favorite episode to do throughout the week? I would love to hear what your favorite part of the week is. All right, thanks, Bob, again, for all you do. Keep on doing your thing, man.
Well, Josh, thank you for the question and for the way that you asked the question by putting it on a voice memo and emailing it to me at bobbymac@bluejackets.com. But to go through your question, I'm glad you asked this, and I'll tell you why I'm glad, because I think it's time for a little mid-season review on this. So I'm going to ask for you to send me a tweet at BobbyMacSports. Go to Twitter, at BobbyMacSports, and I want to know, and maybe I should do it as a poll question there too, but in case I don't get that up there before you hear this and you want to respond, I would love for you to do that. All right, so the format that I have, and I started at the beginning of the year, is to do this Monday Mailbag, then to do a Friday show that has a long-form interview with somebody. It can be somebody with the team, just somebody in hockey in general, it doesn't matter. And then something with John Tortorella throughout the course of the week. The Inside Edge that Jody Shelley and I do on Wednesdays is also repurposed as a podcast after the show is over. So we went from doing this 5 days a week in past years to doing two that are branded CBJ and 30, a conversation with John Tortorella, and then the Inside Edge. So one day has been cut out, really. It's four things, and I guess maybe it's three different things over 4 days instead of the constant. So my question to you is, do you like the way it's set up? Do you have a better suggestion? Do you like the way it used to be? Are you missing something on game days? Would you rather see something on game days as opposed to maybe something the way it is right now? It's worth a mid-season review. I really think it is. So, Josh, thanks for bringing that to my attention. But to answer the question that you asked about which is my favorite part of the week, it's really this. It is. I enjoy doing this. I don't enjoy it as much when the team is losing as when they're winning, of course. You don't enjoy having to ask the questions that you do when they're losing as opposed to when they're winning also. But I like getting your feedback. I like to know what people are thinking. I like to know what questions are on people's minds. I like to help. If there is a question you don't know the answer to, you truly don't, I like to help educate. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. You know, this is a great sport, and I think that one of the biggest hurdles that you have to clear with people is getting them to understand exactly what's going on in the game. And then once you get the game, then you want to figure out the rest of it. So it's an educational process. I don't think that, this is not Boston. This is not New York. This is not Philadelphia. It's not, a place that's had hockey 50 or 100 years. It's been here for a long time in many different forms in many different leagues. So it's understood. But when you're cultivating new fans each and every day, that's what I like to do. And I hope that this is part of that cultivation process to help you understand more what's going on, both in front of your eyes and behind the scenes all at the same time. So that's what makes this my favorite part of it. Anytime I get to go one-on-one with John Tortorella, though, that is very enjoyable to me. I have I feel privileged and honored to be able to do that over the course of 4 years now that he has been here. It's just a great conversation. It's fun. Like anybody else, you get him in the right mood, it's really fun. You get him in the wrong mood, you get through it. But I've gotten to the point now with even on a day where he's not in the best of moods, if I see little openings where I might be able to still tweak him and get him off balance or try to make him laugh or whatever, I think I've gotten to that point with him. So I enjoy that a lot. So that would be 1 and 1A. 1 is doing this and answering your questions. 1A is anytime I get a chance to sit down one-on-one with a Blue Jackets head coach. All right, let's get to more of your questions on Twitter at Bobby Mac Sports. Nick Johnson says, is there a better defensive pairing in the NHL than Seth Jones and Zach Werenski? Before I read the rest of what Nick has written, I can answer this. No, absolutely not. Nick continues, between Seth's ice time and Werenski's goals, it seems like they are just dominating. Isn't it funny, Nick? And Jody Shelley and I talked about this on last week's edition of The Inside Edge, because I asked him the question, what pair do you like better? Duncan Keith and Brent Seabrook for the Chicago Blackhawks in their prime when the Blackhawks were winning cups, or Seth Jones and Zach Werenski right now in their prime. Maybe not even to their prime yet, quite frankly. And he picked Seth and Zach. And it's not because we're homers and we work for the Blue Jackets. I mean, yeah, we know those guys personally and professionally. We get to watch them play. It's a blessing to watch them both play every night. But they just produce. Those guys were very good at the time when they were winning those Stanley Cups. And the reason I brought up the question is because they were the most feared defensive pair in the NHL at that time. And I think that Seth and Zach are of this time. I really do. And I think that there was all this talk for all these years, and it started at the beginning of this year. Let me slow down. In fact, I think they were split up at one point early this year. But, people have been asking, and I'm talking reporters, asking about splitting them up, creating more balance. Don't ever bring that up again. Nobody ever bring that up again. Somebody brought up the other day, this was in Las Vegas, somebody asked John Tortorella about if he would ever split up Gavrikov and Savard. So two things went through my head. The first is, well, we finally got past this splitting up Seth and Zach thing, which I always thought was stupid anyway. So now we're going to quit asking questions about that, thank God. But now we're going to talk about splitting up the second. I wouldn't split that pair up either. I'd take my chances with the third pairing, whoever it may be. Right now it happens to be Marcus Nudavara and Scott Harrington. Maybe it's Andrew Peeke at some points. Maybe it's Gabriel Carlson. Dean Kukin, when he's healthy, goes back in there. But I'll take my chances with that because I can run hard with 4 defensemen if I have to at certain points of games. And I'd take those 4 in the pairings that they are in. I wouldn't split them up. And so, again, it's just overthinking, creating things just for the sake of creating questions, I believe, is what happens. And it's my business. I mean, somebody said this last week. You don't consider yourself part of the media. No, I don't, because I work for the team, and I'm, but I end up in the same press conferences and all that stuff. But sometimes I think people just ask questions. They overthink and ask questions just for the sake of having a question. Dustin Goza has 2 questions. He says, what do you think the Blue Jackets will end up doing with their cap space? And hypothetically, if the players that are on injured reserve come back and don't play as well as the call-ups, what will happen? I'll answer it in order. What will they do with the cap space? It depends. It depends what's out there, what position they're in, and if they feel that they want to dig into it. Because remember, they've got to sign some guys here, mainly Pierre-Luc Dubois and both goalies at the end of the year. So some of that money and that cap space is already accounted for, okay? The second question is the better one, and the one that I'm more intrigued by because I don't know the answer to it. When it says, what if the guys that come back and are healthy aren't playing as well as the guys that are here? Well, you can only have so many guys on the roster at one time, and then players have to be put on injured reserve to create roster spaces. So they better, let me just say this, they had better play as well as these guys are playing. There's no excuse for them not to. Are you telling me that Cam Atkinson can't be a better player than Kevin Stenlund at this point of their career? At this point, Cam's a 41 goal scorer. Okay. And that's I'm just picking Stenlund out of a hat. I could pick Lilia on that. Ryan McInnes, all that. You telling me that Josh Anderson can't be a better player than Kevin Stenlund, still do the same things and play the same way this team is right now? No, that's not how it's supposed to work. So if they're not playing as well, then you're going to have to really reassess your roster and see if you have the right people or if you just thought that you had the right people. Derek Ehrman says, I will admit that I was critical of Elvis before this recent stretch. He's been impressive in Corpy's absence. Both guys seem to perform well when they know that they are, quote-unquote, the guy. Do you think splitting time more evenly when Jonas Korpisalo comes back could be a bad thing? I don't think it will be a bad thing, Derek, and I'll tell you why. I think Korpisalo will get a chance to go back in the net as the main guy. But what's not going to happen is Elvis isn't going to go 2 and 3 weeks without playing a game, because now he has proven that he can play. And I think as long as he knows he's going to be in the mix here and there, then he's going to be able to continue to perform like he is. These athletes just want to know. And Elvis was sitting there having no idea when he's going to play again. No idea. And just think about that. Just think about whatever it is that you do, whether you're doing something for fun and you want to do it, but nobody's telling you when you're going to be able to do it, whether it's something at work where it's something that you have to do and you're working at getting better on, but you're waiting for somebody to come and tell you, okay, now's your time to do it, and they're not coming for 3 weeks. Think about that. What a tough position that is. Look, I've been critical of Elvis. There's no doubt. But he deserved the criticism at the time based on the performance and the results. Okay? Now the performance has gotten much, much, much better. The results have gotten much, much, much better. So you get less criticism. I'm not going to apologize for being critical of the guy. And I don't think you should either, Derek. And I'm not saying maybe you're not here, so I'm overblowing it. But he's earned it now. And that's all I ever wanted him to do. Earn it. Just earn it. If you're really that good, come and show everybody you're that good. If you don't think you need to play in the American Hockey League, just come in and show me that you don't need to play in the American Hockey League. And that had not been done until the injury. And now he's doing it. Look, and he's making there's some games through the stretch where he's Anaheim the other night. I'll give you an example. Anaheim the other night. The game is 4-2. They pull the goalie. They're down there peppering him with shots, and all of a sudden he can't stop. Right, wrong word. He can't freeze a puck. He can't catch it. It's going off his glove. It's staying alive. He can't pin it to the ice. They're knocking it away from him. And eventually they get a third goal. Right? So it's just a scramble that's going on there. But he survived it. So at the end of the day, it's only me going back and saying, hey, remember that when he gave up that third goal because he couldn't get himself into position to cover a puck and freeze it and get a face-off and all this stuff. But my point is, it hasn't all been spectacular. It hasn't all been pretty, but it doesn't need to be. I thought the game in Vegas was probably the prettiest game that he has played. And he made some big saves, and there were some other big saves he didn't have to make because of guys like David Savard jumping in front of missiles that were being thrown at the net. But that's all part of it. It's got to be a team thing. They want to do that for him. They want to bail him out of those bad situations. And they are doing that. So he's earned it. And I think that the new thing is what the Islanders did last year. The Islanders lost their quote-unquote best player. And I say that because he was the face of their team, John Tavares. He goes to Toronto. Everybody says, oh, these guys are dead in the water. Barry Trotz comes in as the head coach, and he goes, oh, we're fine. We've got guys that can score. We're going to play a good, solid team defense. We're going to make it hard for the other team to score. And we're going to split our goalies and see what happens. Thomas Greiss and Robin Lehner. Robin Lehner off the scrap heap, basically when he went to the Islanders. And he and Thomas Greiss basically split the games, and they get into the playoffs, and they win a round. Okay? I think that mindset is changing, where you don't have to have a guy play 65 games and the other guy plays 17. You can lessen it. Get it down to 55. Maybe get it down to between 50 and 55. because a rested goalie, get Jody Shelley on the subject. He'll talk to you about it for 30 minutes. He loves to cite the Braden Holtby situation when the Capitals beat the Blue Jackets a couple of years ago. Because Holtby was hurt, he was out for a long time, and when he finally came back in to take over for Philip Grubauer, who faltered in the series, Holtby was a much more rested goaltender. He wouldn't have been as rested if he wouldn't have struggled and been benched through the final 4 to 6 weeks of the regular season. So Korpisalo is that guy right now. His 4 to 6 weeks is coming right now. Now, he'll be having to get his timing back and all that stuff, but he's going to be a much better rested goaltender. And Elvis, because he sat there and watched Corpy play all those games, he's more rested too. I think that could be a good thing. I really do, Derek. We'll wait and see how it plays out, but I think that could be a good thing. Bobo says, I've been seeing on rumor sites that Josh Anderson could be a target for people this trade deadline. I think with his performance this year, the buying point is going to be low. What do you think a fair return for Josh Anderson would be? That's a tough question because he had 27 goals last year. He's got 1 this year. He's hurt. That's going to make it tougher. Somebody's going to try to lowball you and try to get him for, I don't know. I don't even know. 2nd-round pick, 3rd-round pick. I have no idea. I'm bad at that kind of stuff. Really am. But maybe you end up packaging him with somebody. Let's just say you have a plethora of defensemen. Somebody needs a forward and a D-man, and maybe you can put that together or something like that. There's creativity that can be done there. Plus, he did have the 27 last year. Okay, it's not like he had 27 3 years ago, and then he had 10, then he had 9, and now he's got 1. So you still have that 27 goals that's there, and it's legit, and it's real. So I don't know what a fair return is going to be, but I do think, and people are starting to come around to this, and I've said this, for a while. I think he's going to be one of those guys that, you see him as a very valuable part and somebody you would not want to send somewhere else, but that might come into play just based on, contract status, and he's a restricted free agent, but they'd have to sign him for 1 year, and then he could be a unrestricted free agent at the end of next season. And so do you want to sign him to a 1 year, and then if he doesn't want to come back, then you've got to trade him during next year anyway? Or, it's just such that's why I'm glad I'm not a GM, quite frankly. I'm very glad of that because it's those are tough decisions. Tough decisions. Jason Dye says, have we seen all of Elvis's true potential yet, or is the best yet to come? No, we haven't seen it. It hasn't even scratched the surface, Jason. What you're seeing right now is just him becoming acclimated to the speed of the NHL, to the size of the rink, all the things we talked about early in the year that he was going to have to adjust to. He's adjusting to them now. So guess what? There's a lot more there. There's a lot more for Elvis Merzlikins, no doubt about it. So sit back and enjoy the ride. I think it's going to be. I said when Korpisalo got hurt, I said to people around the arena, I said, one of two things is going to happen right now. We're either going to be telling a fantastic story over the next couple of weeks, or the bottom's going to fall out on this team. And I said that because Elvis hadn't won a game, didn't look like he would be ready to do what he is showing us that he can do, what he is doing right now. And that's the incredible story. So the story's just starting with him. The story's just starting with this team. We're telling so many stories. We're telling the Elvis story. We're telling the Stenlund story. We're telling the Nathan Gerbe story. We're telling the Andrew Peak story, who wasn't even supposed to be in the mix. And I know he's been out because of the broken finger, but, he's practicing again with the team. They brought him out to California. He was practicing. We're telling a lot of stories about a lot of people that we didn't know would really be talking that much about. And I think it's fun. And I think you're just seeing the beginning of all of this. To that point, Keith says, this is a roller coaster of emotion. Do you stay the course and get to next season, or do you make some moves to go and grab a playoff spot? I say make a move to improve, but please do not sell the farm, as the farm is talented and the future is bright. Very well put, Keith. And look, I've said this before, and other people have said it. You're not going to have what happened last year. No matter what, you're not going to have the going all out, trading draft picks and prospects and all. That's not going to happen, okay? If they make any additions, it's going to be subtle and kind of precise additions, I think. Not big and flashy like last year, just trying to complement what you already have and make it better. So the thing about this is it's twofold, again, with these players that are up here right now. Number one, you get to see how they will actually perform playing in the NHL. You can project all you want to in the American Hockey League. You can watch them play pro and, see what they're doing against top prospects of other teams and all that stuff. And that's great. That's great. But seeing them play here against established NHL players, that gives you your full understanding of what you actually have. So they're being evaluated, and now the organization has a good evaluation on every one of these guys. And other teams are getting those evaluations too. They're making their own evaluations watching them in the NHL. So it's making them more valuable. It's making them more valuable either to play here or to play somewhere else. And if you send them to that somewhere else, you're going to get a better return because they're playing here. So I think this has been all – it's crazy, isn't it? When 9, 11 guys, whatever it's been, the highest number, to go out of the lineup, you think it's over. And Pittsburgh did the same thing a couple of weeks ago. They got their jump on the injuries earlier than the Blue Jackets did and just kept winning. So it's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy, but it's also wonderful. And it's a real testament. The Blue Jackets had their scouts out in California. They had pro scout meetings in California. They had amateur scouting meetings in Vegas. Every one of those guys that was there should be commended for what they've been able to do, quite honestly. Because they're the guys assembling that talent. They're finding it, they're recommending it, and then the team is drafting it or signing it. So those guys, they work really, really hard. And I'm glad they were there when the team was winning 3 out of 4 and they could see some of the guys that they recommended doing exactly what they thought that they would be able to do once they got into this league. All right, what else do we have here? Let's see. Oh, let's just make it easy. Buckeye State Sports says, why can't we beat the Sharks? Well, that's a good question. Just the way they play. They play a little bit different from the other teams. John Tortorella had talked about the Blue Jackets when they dumped the puck into the zone in San Jose on Thursday night. They kept getting it too close to the goaltender, Aaron Dell. He was getting it away from the net into the corner, and that disrupted the forecheck. So that is some of it. I think the first one, playing at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I just don't think they were ready for that game. And I think I said this last week, but I still think that if you're a Rangers, Bruins, Flyers, Penguins, Blackhawks, you're used to playing those afternoon games. You do it enough where it's only a little tweak. I think when you do it, once a year, it's a little bit more challenging at times. And that sounds like an excuse, and maybe it is. Maybe I'm making partly an excuse, but in that game they weren't ready to go. That's why they lost to 1 at home. But the other night, San Jose, I think they felt like they could beat the Blue Jackets, and they haven't had a lot of great success here lately, San Jose. But they had just had success against the Blue Jackets 5 days before, and I think they kind of fed off that, and then they made it tough for them. They just disrupted what the Blue Jackets wanted to do. So that's your answer, and that's why they can't beat the Sharks this year anyway. So where are the Blue Jackets coming into play tomorrow night against the Boston Bruins? Well, they have 52 points. That has them tied in points with the Philadelphia Flyers. The Flyers do have a game in hand on the Blue Jackets. But both those teams are out of the playoff picture at the moment. The 2 wild cards are Carolina and Florida, and they each have a game in hand on the Blue Jackets. Carolina's got 56 points. Florida's got 53 points. So Florida got a win yesterday over Toronto. They crushed them. Crushed them, for crying out loud. The final score was 8-4 in that game. So Florida moves into a playoff spot for the moment. And Philadelphia is out, again, for the moment. Many, many, many games to play. But the Blue Jackets have their sights now on not just the second wild card spot. They can get to the top wild card spot, for crying out loud. In fact, third place in the division is only 6 points ahead of where the Blue Jackets are right now. It's very doable. It's not impossible. It's very doable. And that's why it's going to be fun to watch these next couple of weeks. Look, they're going to dip again at some point. I don't know when, but it's just a fact of life. It happens. So they need to ride this wave right to the All-Star break and then figure it out from there. Thank you for your questions. As always, you can send those to me anytime you want to on Twitter at Bobby Mack Sports. And like I said, if you feel brave, and I hope you start to, just get on your phone, whatever you use for a voice memo on your phone, record your question, tell me who you are, where you're from, ask your question, and email it to me, BobbyMack@BlueJackets.com, and you can actually be a part of the show. You can literally be a part of the show. I would love for that to happen for you. Blue Jackets taking on the Boston Bruins tomorrow night, 7 o'clock at Nationwide Arena. Our pregame coverage will start at 6:30 on the Blue Jackets Radio Network. Until then, I'm Bob McElligott saying so long.